In this video, we're going to review quickly some middle school concepts. What's a ratio? A ratio is a comparison of two or more quantities. So it's a comparison of two or more quantities. And the way there are different ways to represent a ratio. We can say quantity A over B. We can say A to B, write it out. And very often you can compare basketball games and different team sports using A to B, right? And ratios can be simplified. And I like to remember that ratio is just a fraction. And that's a fraction that can be written in different forms. So here's an example. A music store has 40 trumpets, 30 clarinets, 24 violin, 51 flutes, and 16 trombones in stock. Then we're asked to write these ratios. So trumpets to violin, I have 40 to 24. Now think about it as a fraction. I can cancel a 4 out of it, so I divide 4 by each. Then I can divide by 2, right? So my final answer is 5 to 3. You can write it like that. Flutes to clarinets is 51 to 39. And there's a 13 in each of them. So 13, that's, there's a 3 in each of them. There's a 17, there's a 3 in each of them because 5 plus 1 is 6. That's divisible by 3. 39 is divisible by 3. So that's 17 to 13. Trombones to trumpets. How many is that? 16 trombones? 40. So that becomes 2 to 5. There's an 8 in there. And finally, violin as a total is 24 to 170. So that's 12 to 85, right? So again, to simplify, you have to use divisibility rule. How do I spell it? Ability rule. Okay, so that's when you want to think about every number is divisible by 1, so you don't need to worry about 1. Even numbers are divisible by 2, and numbers, you can add all the digits together, like 51. 5 plus 1 is 6. If it's a number that's divisible by 3, then 51 is divisible by 3. If a number ends with 5 or 0, it's divisible by 5. So it's pretty much within these four numbers, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 3 numbers. And then after you come up with a new number, you want to check another round, like what we did here in the first part, that I recognize that there's a 4 in there, but after that I have 10 over 8, and 10 over 8 there's still a 2 in there because both of them are even. Okay, so that's the how to simplify a ratio. Now, an extended ratio is a comparison of 3 or more. So it's a comparison of 3 or more quantities. So we can have A to B and to C. Let's look at some examples here. The ratio of two complementary angles is 3 to 7. Find the measures of both angles. So, meaning if they add up to 90, so angle 1 and angle 2 add up to 90. But angle 1 is 3 parts, so I call that 3x. Angle 2 is 7 parts. So I add them together, I have 90, and that's 10x equals 90, so x has to equal 9. Now if I substitute the x into the 3x, I should have 27 degrees, and 7 times 9 is 63 degrees. So here are my final answers, and you add them together, it check out that they are complementary. Okay, so number 7, the ratio of the measures of the angle in a triangle is 4 to 7 to 9. Find the measures. Same thing, the first angle is 4 parts, the second angle is 7 parts, and the third one is 9 parts. You add all 3 together because they add up to a triangle. Triangle add up to 180 degrees, and you solve for that. I think this one too, it's x equals 9. So if you plug it back into 4x and 7x and 9x, that's your final answer here. Okay, finish 6 and 8 on your own. It's exactly the same thing, pretty much. So now let's look at number 9. The ratio of the measures of the sides of a triangle. So now I'm talking about the sides. It's 2 to 8 to 9. And if the perimeter of it is 76, find the length of each side. Same concept. So I have 2 parts plus 8 parts plus 9 parts. I have the whole perimeter now. That equals 76. So that's 10, 19, 19x equals 76. So x has to be 4. And then you plug it back in. You should have 2 times 4 is 8. Sorry about that. That's 8. What's the unit? Inches. 8 times 4 is 32 inches. And 4 times 9 is 36 inches. Okay. Finish number 9 on your own. So again, keep in mind that ratio is just it's a comparison of 2 or 3 or more things. And the way to solve these word problems is find out whatever is given, and when you use the ratio, you can use x to represent one part. So in our example number 9, for example, you have 2 parts, 8 parts, and 9 parts. You add them all together, you have the parameter. So now let's look at proportion. Proportion now is an equation. So I have an equal sign, right? It's an equation that states 2 ratios. So remember, one ratio is a fraction, but now if I find an equation of a ratio, that's called a proportion. And we write it as A over B equals C over D. And there is a cross product property, which I'm sure you all have encountered in middle school. And I think based on my experience, all kids love cross multiply. So that's where we say to solve the proportion, you just cross multiply. A times D should equal B times C. And that brings the, that basically takes the, I can't talk this morning, that takes the fraction, the denominator away. And the way to prove it is use inverse function. So let's look at some simple examples. 11, 4 over x equals 7 over 2. So all you need to do is you see a proportion, you cross multiply, so it's 2x equals 48. X obviously equals 24. Oh, 2x equals 28. X equals 14. Sorry about that. And let's look at 13. Cross multiply again. So I have 19. Be very careful. Use parentheses to protect your terms. And then it's 6 times 13 should give me 78. Then you distribute it. You do your inverse operation or transformation, whatever you do, you should have about x equals 5.1. Okay, so the rest of it is pretty similar. And let's do the rest of it are all similar, just one term with variables. Let's do number 17. Number 17, I do have x in two parts of the proportion. So it's still the same thing. You cross multiply. So now I have 18 times x minus 20 equals 3 times x minus 11. Now here, if you want to go ahead and distribute, you can. I'm the type that I like to simplify whenever I can, because I see 18 is divisible by 3, so I'm just going to divide both sides by 3. And it's a multiplication here, so I can cancel very easily, right? Now I have 6 times x minus 20, so now if I distribute it, the number will be a lot smaller, and they're much easier to deal with. So that would be 5x if I do that, and that becomes 131. 5x, so this it will be a decimal, so x equals 26, is it? 20, I'm just, so 10, yeah, 26.2. That's the final answer. Okay, so everything else should be exactly the same. Method, just cross multiply, and finish the rest of it before you come back to the classroom. Thank you, guys.